Hi everyone, my name is Robert. I want to welcome you to my new YouTube channel. It's called Real Talk with Robert, and I'm very excited to share different types of stories with you for my channel. For my first guest, she's a really interesting person. I really enjoy talking to her. Her name is Julie. So for her, I've decided to do two parts. For the first part that you're going to be watching shortly, you're going to see her talk about how she became a mother, what she had to actually go through, the whole journey, everything that was involved. And at the end, she now has a beautiful daughter. Her name is Vivia. She's absolutely amazing, and I loved watching the bond and the way they interact with each other. And I could tell that Julie is an amazing mother. And so I'm looking forward to sharing that story. And for part two, I've decided to share the career aspect of Julie. She does different things. She's a life coach. She helps people in different areas of their life. And also, she's going to talk about how she's also a dancer, or at least she was a dancer. She owns a studio called Inspire. And so I'm hoping that you'll enjoy that story in my next video. But before we go there, let's go ahead and watch first part about how she became a mother and about Vivia. So again, thank you for watching. It would be great if you could subscribe to my channel, click like, share, and comment your thoughts. I would greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much. I'll see you again next time. Thank you. Hi, Julie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Robert. I'm excited.
Well, thank you. I actually want to be the one telling you. I'm actually very thankful that you actually took the time out of your busy schedule to sit down with me. And I know there's a lot of stories to unpack today, and I really do want to thank you.
Well, you are very welcome, and some of the things that you are interested in talking about are the things that light me up the most, and so I'm excited I love to talk about things that light me up. I love to talk about things that light others up. So yeah, I'm excited to delve in.
Me too.
And hopefully my doggy will behave.
Yeah, I think he's doing
Trying to keep him quiet.
Yeah, he's actually very comfortable.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to do a couple of segments here, but the first one,
Sure.
the most important one we're going to talk about is that little person that's extremely important in your life.
Yeah.
And her name is
Vivia.
Yes.
Vivia. Her full name is Vivia Bliss Lily Page, and Vivia actually means life. Its translation is life, and so her first middle name, Bliss, was like me wanting to bless her with a life of bliss.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let us get into the journey of how she came along.
Man, what a journey it was.
Yes.
Yeah. So Vivia is what we would label a double donor baby. And I also had to use a gestational surrogate in order to bring her into the world. So I'm a single mom. And I started the journey about a decade ago. She's 2 now. And I, at that point, was single in my life and knew I wanted to be a mom. I always knew I wanted to be a mom. And just felt ready. So I went and got, or felt ready to start considering it. So I went and got fertility tested, which is one of the things that you do if you're going to do it on your own. And they basically said to me, and I was still pretty young then, and they basically said to me, if you want to have a child with your body and your eggs, your hormones are starting to decline, and you got to do it now. I was like, now? I was just kind of beginning the research. And so I took that leap, and I said, this is for sure. I am meant to be a mom. And I initially talked to a really dear friend who was going to be the male donor. And his wife was on board, and they had a child of their own. They now have 2. And we discussed how that would be in detail. And then last minute, kind of 11th hour, I panicked and went with an anonymous donor. So So I went through, I went through 3 cycles of IVF, trying to generate healthy eggs and embryos and implant them into my body so that I could carry my child. And they were unsuccessful. And after the second one, they were just saying, like my doctor was saying, if you want the guarantee, you really need to use an egg donor as well. That was the hardest part of the journey for me in that moment in time. I had a lot of sadness and grief and feeling and confusion. So I also have 2 cousins who are adopted, who are 100% my family, like meant to be in my life. They're just 100% my family. And so I looked into, well, should I adopt if it can't be my own genetic baby? Should I? So it was quite a journey. I talked to a national adoption lawyer, and he had basically said to me then that he said because the culture has changed so much in our country, where it's acceptable for teens to become moms. There was the MTV like Teen Mom show, and that there are very few national babies that are available for adoption. And because I wanted an infant, I wanted to have the whole experience. And most of them are going to be like babies who are coming with like addiction and developmental issues. And he said, I'm a grandparent of however many grandkids he had, and he said, the thing that every parent wants for their child is for their child to be happy and healthy. And that's your greatest wish for your child. And obviously I said, yep, that sounds about right. And he said, there's a good chance if you go this route that you may not have a healthy or a happy child. And you may not be able to fix that. And that really scared me. So at that point I was like, what do I do? Do I quit? And I decided to, and I think at that point also, the doctor had told me that using my own body, or maybe we did try once with the egg donor with my own body. I can't remember the exact journey, but it was several tries. And eventually I was told I also needed a surrogate, so a gestational surrogate, which for people who don't know is different than a traditional. So a traditional surrogate uses their own egg and their own body, so they are like the bio mom. And most states in our country don't allow traditional surrogacy anymore. And so gestational surrogacy is where somebody who is not genetically related at all to the baby carries the baby. And typically they're carrying for someone who is genetically linked. But in my case, Vivia is from an egg donor and a sperm donor. And my cousin ended up carrying her in the end. So the journey, 10 years ago, another woman was someone who I didn't know, but we got to know very well, attempted to carry my child. And we had, I think on the 4th try, we had a positive pregnancy. And then when we went for the heartbeat test, there was no heartbeat. And at that point, I had spent thousands and thousands of dollars, my entire savings back then. And the emotional toll of, I just assumed it was going to work. I was like, oh, we're going to hype me up on hormones. We're going to have a baby here. We're doing it. It's not exactly the way I had planned originally in my mind, but we're going for it. And when it didn't work after all those tries, I decided, number one, I had to take a financial break at the time. And number two, I decided I just needed to step back and take an emotional break. And cut to, so I took what I did not know is it would be a 5-year break. And then, so I guess I'm trying to do math, 6-7 years ago, I don't know. I was doing a lot of work, so I'm a certified life coach, and I was doing a lot of work, self-work. And one of the things that came up again in looking at really standing for and committing to my most wholehearted and successful life full of meaning, purpose, joy, love, was that I was not ready to give up on that dream. And not only that, but the skills that I had gained as a coach and a client of coaching allowed me to not let the circumstances dictate the outcome, but my commitment dictate the outcome. So I did have frozen embryo from the previous tries that were viable, that I had been just paying the bank every year to keep frozen. And
so there's a fee for it. Right?
There's a fee,
Sorry.
another fee. Yeah,
Sure.
It's a very expensive process, which is also disheartening, because there are so many people who have infertility issues, and a lot of people can't afford the process.
Right.
And health insurance is dependent upon different states. So some states will offer to couples only, some states, so it just really depends on where you live, whether or not you'll get any insurance support. I did not get any. Anyway, second time around, my cousin, my dear cousin Katie, volunteered to be the surrogate, and it worked. And I have this beautiful baby. And what's so interesting about the journey is not only did I get this amazing gift of this miraculous little child who I think every parent must feel this, but I feel like I got the best one. I just think she's amazing, even when she's naughty, and even when she's but what I understand now is that it happened exactly the way it was supposed to happen. There have been so many more blessings than I ever could have imagined, besides just the gift of her, in the way that it happened, and the people who helped us out. I feel like I could go on and on.
For those you mentioned about, let's talk about cost.
Yeah.
So somebody's right now sitting here contemplating on taking the route that you took, where maybe she cannot conceive a child, biologically, and they have to take surrogacy route.
Right.
What is the typical cost, from your experience?
So I would say I'm not the best person to ask, because I think most people, I was lucky this time around in that, so 10 years ago, whatever the cost was then, I'm sure it's exorbitant compared to that now.
Exactly.
I know that for surrogacy, most people choose to go through surrogacy agencies. Okay. And we, in the great state of California, have one of the highest rates. Sure. So I want to say it can be, and this you should not quote me, no. 50 to 80,000 just for the surrogate, not the process or all the other things you have to pay for, the medical stuff, or the lawyers, or all that. So I could just not afford all of that, especially after having spent so much. I probably, the first time around, probably spent definitely over 100,000, maybe closer to 200,000 in all those different attempts. And no baby at that time. And so my cousin, while I did sort of reimburse her at a much different rate than I would have had to with a professional surrogate, or going through an agency, where an agency is also going to get fees. And then I covered, obviously, all of the medical expenses and
right. I was going to ask you about that.
Health expenses, or anything, her expenses for anything related. So it's an expensive. What I would say is, for people looking, there are different. So I looked at, where the baby gives birth is going to be dependent, like what state, if you're in our country, or internationally. So there are some international options for people to find a cheaper route or less expensive route. It's going to depend state by state. Just in regards to all of that, even our IVF process was actually in Florida, because that's where my first surrogate was, and so the embryos were frozen there, And we originally were going to ship them out, and then the clinic out here said it was just more of a science-y thing, like the way they froze them and de-thaw them. It would be better to have the same people do it, or that same process, because they do a different process out here, blah, blah, blah. So even though we gave birth in California, most of the medical IVF process was done in Florida. So my cousin flew to Florida in the middle of COVID.
Wow, that added a whole
in the middle of COVID, yeah.
unique set of challenges.
Like,
right?
yeah.
There's restrictions.
She is, the coolest thing about my cousin is, or the journey is that she and I did not grow up together. So her parents got divorced when she was 2. And she lived with the parent that I'm not related to. So I would see her at big family functions throughout my life, but not like some of my other cousins that we would see at holidays and different things like that, or took vacations with. So I didn't know her that well. Like I remembered her from when she was 2. I remembered her from when she was 9. Like I have these weird little pockets of memory of spending a little bit of time with her, but I didn't know her as an adult. And we are literally we're like soul sisters. We share the same core values. We look at the world and our belief system, and I feel like that was one of I wouldn't have gotten to have my cousin in my life in the way that she'll be in my life forever now.
Yes. I could imagine the bonding is much deeper level now that you've been involved. She's been involved in such personal way. I know that a lot of parents women who actually go through the whole 9 months of pregnancy, the whole journey of up and down, the hormones and everything that causes them to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
At the end, they feel the great deal of bonding with the child that they gave birth. Mm-hmm. How did that affect your cousin in terms of that emotional bond with Vivia?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the hardest for her. And she knew, she's, I mentioned to you earlier, she's a therapist. So she's a social worker, and she owns her own business as a sex therapist.
Okay.
And so she has a network of support and her own self-awareness. And so she really prepared for the ultimate, that she would be handing the baby that she carried in her body over to me. And of course, she's a big part of our life, and she's going to always be a big part of our life. And but I think that and she'd be the person to really answer that. But I think that was definitely hard for her, and I know that there was grieving, and I know that, and we were actually supposed to stay with her for a week or so before we came back home, and because of COVID, her son, there was an outbreak in his preschool, and so we couldn't go into the house with a newborn, and so we literally on 2 days, Vivia was 2 days old when we flew. She was up in Sacramento, so we flew. It was like a 2-hour flight home to LA, and we had to part from her earlier than expected. And that was definitely hard for her. She is now pregnant.
Oh, okay.
So I think it was also the impetus for her to grow her family. And she's open. She's still in the early stages, so I get nervous saying it, but she's very open sharing it publicly, and she says, I'm pregnant in this moment, and if it continues, that's a great blessing. But so yeah, I think that was probably very difficult.
Right. I think, sometimes unique challenges or difficulties in terms of the separation, where she could not basically see Vivia in the earliest days and see her grow. And where there's a strong level of bonding that takes place during that process. And I think in certain ways it made it maybe a little less complicated, where the distance made it easier for you to bond with Vivia and not create this confusion between bonding between two different motherly figures, so to speak.
And it's funny because in the moment, and then you throw in the egg donor who we met a year ago, so I can tell you about that as well, because that was also a leap of faith where I had a lot of fear, but felt that it was the right thing for Vivia and was terrified about what it might mean for me to invite her and her family into our lives. So I can talk about that after. But yeah, I think that's a good point. I even, like we had talked about all the different, what will happen the moment she comes out? What will happen, is Katie gonna breastfeed? The initial, there's like a a golden liquid, I forget what it's called now, that comes out like in the beginning that's supposed to have all these nutrients for the baby,
yes,
like in the first...
I think it's colostrum.
Yeah, colostrum. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have 2 young daughters.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
IVF and all that.
And so we wanted her to get that because
Yes.
that, like, it's all the antibodies and all of that.
Exactly.
But I had a lot of fear. I mean, it's scary to like, of wanting to bond with my child and not, wanting her to. I mean, I wanted her to bond with her cousin, but there was a lot of fear, just like that I've worked through, and so initially she was going to breast pump the first bit, but it wasn't working, and so I was like, just take her. In the moment, it didn't matter. Like it was like,
Right.
This doesn't matter. Like this is the most amazing, and the birth. Like you've witnessed a birth, I'm guessing.
Yes.
It is the most miraculous thing I have ever experienced.
Yes, it was hard to watch.
Oh my God! Yeah, it was miraculous.
Yeah, it's a moment that you don't forget.
Yeah, and my belief system, and I should say this, and I know that I published a children's book. So I wrote a children's book. I shouldn't even say book. I wrote our birth story, my belief about how my daughter came to me, and I wrote it for Vivia, and so my belief is, and this is 100%, like I feel sure of it, certain that this soul, that Vivia is my soul baby, and that we picked each other in the universe, and
Right.
I was meant to be her mom for this journey, and she is meant to be my baby, and we are soul connected, and I just didn't have the ingredients to grow her human body, to hold her soul, and these other amazing souls who are in their human bodies were generous enough to support us.
To be the vessel.
Yeah, to be the vessel.
Yeah,
exactly. And so that's my belief system, and it's so clear. Like and I think this is such a thing about kids. If you're paying attention, like we think initially as parents, like we're here to teach them how to have their best life and be successful as living beings, and they're here to teach us even more, if equal, if not more.
Sure.
And it's so clear that...
Especially, I think they teach us when we are really in a difficult moment.
Yes.
We're having a very difficult...
Yes.
where we want to just,
yes.
throw up our arms in the air.
Yes.
And then it's a moment of reflection, right? Would you say? Yeah.
Sometimes it happens after the moment. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes that pause comes
you sit on it after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it is agreed upon by, I would say, most people, especially mothers, that raising a child is among the most difficult work you will ever do in your life, because as you understand, it's not just an 8-hour work, right? It's a day and night work. But the purpose and meaning, I would say, that they add in your life, or Vivia adds in your life, I could imagine it makes it easier to go through it, because in your case, you're a single mother. Walk through us a little bit about that, because there's a lot of single mothers out there who are divorced.
God bless you all, single caregivers, whether you're mom, dad, grandma. I give such props to all the single parents out there.
How is it like to be a single parent?
So I'm used to operating, so I own 2 businesses. I am a leader in the world, or in my world. So I'm used to being responsible, being having challenges not be stops for me, being in control of my world. That all flew out the window.
Sure.
And I knew it was going to be hard. So one of
Sure.
my businesses, I own a dance studio. I don't know if I just messed up the mic, but
You're okay.
I own a dance studio for kids. So I've spent 20 years working with kids ages 3 to 18. So I know a lot about kids, mainly females. We don't get too many males in the dance studio, although we want them. So I thought I knew what I was in for. I had no idea. So my mom always asks me, like, she often asks me still, like, is it harder than you thought? Is it better than you thought? And I'm like, yes, to both. Like,
Yes.
it is so much harder than I thought.
Yes.
And it is so much more miraculous. And like, your capacity to love just expands beyond what you could have even conceived of. And there are so many light, joyful, silly, fun, cuddly moments. And then there are the crazy moments. And I think the hardest thing about being a single mom, and I'm still trying to balance it, is like, so my motherhood takes priority, and then my businesses take second priority. And so my space has like really, like my self-care, my free time outside of those three entities has just minimized right now. And she's getting older, and literally even just a couple of months ago, like, she's starting to be more independent and play with friends, and I can actually sit in a chair and like watch her play. Or but I think the hardest thing, and a lot of single parents do have family support, and my family is like the biggest supporters with their heart. But my parents live on the other side of the country. My mom comes out quite often. So I don't have that, like, I can call, and I'm an only child, so I don't have like my sister who lives down the street, who, you know.
Which could have been helpful.
Yeah. So I think the hardest thing for me is those moments. It's not so much the loss of the free time or finding it out or trying to figure out how to honor myself and give myself downtime moments, but it's in those heightened moments of craziness where you have like a toddler having a temper tantrum, or like you're trying to clean up and you're like over here trying to hurry because you have to be somewhere and you're cleaning up, and then you look over and she's like spilled something all over, or she's like had a potty accident, and you're like, oh my God, what do I do now? Like those moments of total overwhelm where I have this belief in my head, which is probably not even how it goes, that like if I had another partner in the home, I could take like 2 minutes to like go in my room and just like breathe and be like, okay, I can come back out and I can deal with this. And so it's those moments of like, I just need a minute, or like, can you stop saying mama for like 1 second and I'll come.
Exactly. It's that
when you've
constant
reached your limit, and like you could reset, you could ground and reset, and like as a coach, I have so many tools in my tool bag for how to reset, how to ground, how to come back to being,
how to change.
But I just, literally, like, she's hanging on to me while I'm trying to do it, and the dog's barking.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many tools you have in your toolbox. You are a human at the core.
And I think parenting is a great practice in accepting failure and swinging again.
Exactly. And giving up control.
And the control thing that we talked about earlier.
You got to be able to be flexible to the max. Because otherwise you'll drive yourself absolutely
I call
crazy.
her my little dictator. And we're both also Leos, which is a very like independent, like queen reigning personality.
That's August, right?
So she's the very end of July, but
Okay.
So there's that battle of the wills too. But it's amazing, and I like all of that said, like it's growing me as a human, and it's pressing upon like it's pressing upon the parts of me that I want to release. Perfectionism, and some of the, or like or the control, controlling your environment, or having everything run at a high bar level, like
Sure.
I
Like
want
a
for my
business.
businesses, and
Exactly.
like it's just parenting is messy, and
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
an imperfect. I mean, so is running a business and being a human and all of that.
Sure.
But it's you're confronted with
Sure.
your own work as through parenting, I think, and
Exactly.
if you have that desire to shift and grow and evolve, like, what better practice?
Sure.
You know?
And the thing is, parenting is it's one of the most satisfying thing to experience.
Yeah.
And there are people out there that are sitting at the cusp of
Yeah.
giving up on the journey of becoming a parent. I've talked to a
Sure.
couple of people who are in that situation, and they're saying, we've run out of patience, we've run out of energy, we've run out of resources.
Sure.
Now we are sitting where we're trying to figure out how do we create this life without a child?
Right.
So if you could maybe use your coaching skills or tools, what kind of an advice would you give to someone who may be listening, who's at the place where they've accepted the fact that, being a parent is not going to be their future? How would they carry on with life? Because there's so many different ways of drawing value in life, drawing purpose and meaning, fulfillment. What would you tell someone who is already sort of at the sunset, where they're like, okay, I'm not going to have my child, but I need to kind of figure out what to do with my life now that we have come to this place?
So the first thing that I'd say is, as a coach, I would never give advice. So I wouldn't, what's right for me isn't, I'm not an expert in anyone else's life.
Right.
I'm not even an expert in my life.
Exactly.
And so I think I believe that there are so many ways, it's like when you start out at the bottom of a mountain and you're going to take a hike up the mountain, and there's the route most traveled, and then there's this route that kind of veers off this way, and then there's where there's a lot of underbrush, or I'm probably using the wrong nature terms, where you could kind of go this way and carve out your own route.
Exactly.
And they're all gonna, they all have the possibility to have you experiencing the beauty of what's on that path, or or getting to the top of the mountain in whatever way that might look for you.
Exactly.
So I would say I would get curious with them about what has them making the choice to put the dream down, and what were you hoping? So looking at, so we have a children to fulfill something inside of us, or to experience a type of connection, or a type of love that that is accessible in so many different ways. There are so many, but then I would also say, for me, I did kind of give up, or I pushed a pause button for a really long time and just didn't really revisit that.
Right, the 5 years period.
Until I was doing my self-work and going, okay, I've shifted this and I've shifted that, and I'm relating to myself, not only just myself, but I think the biggest thing that I've learned from coaching is possibility lives outside of your comfort zone. So we are naturally gravitate toward being comfortable, being safe, being comfortable, taking little risks where you're still kind of you have relatively known outcome, and being willing to be, courageous doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you're terrified, and you do it anyway.
Exactly.
And because the thing you want outweighs the fear. And it's tough when you don't know, like, do I really want this? Could I get,
Right.
could I get that satisfaction with, I mean, my dog is like my baby, so like, there are lots of ways. I mean, there are lots of children who you can foster. I mean, I have a couple of friends who grew up in the foster care system, and I have two friends who work in the foster care system. There's so many ways to fill your life up with purpose and meaning and connection, and even connection with children. There's so many children who need mentors, or I'm a teacher of children, so there's so many different ways to fill up your cup and your heart. But the thing that I would say is, I'd get curious about what has you wanting to put this down, and if you believed it was possible to some way, somehow hold your own child in your arms, would you still play for it? I do not believe that circumstances dictate the outcome. I dictate the outcome. And not just me, it's the magic of whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever the word is that you may use. Like, it's a partnership between myself and, I use the word universe, and the universe, the energy, source energy, and or God, and other human beings. So again, like bringing in the egg donor thing, that was, like I said, that was the hardest for me.
Sure.
And while our male donor was anonymous, which now, back 10 years ago, there wasn't as much research being done, but now, like, if you go on like a surrogacy group, they say, oh, you have to know your donors and for the child, and it's cruel to not know your donor and all that. But to each their own, and I think that how you choose to share your story with your child will be, and whether or not you've dealt with your own shame and grief, and can bring them, and anyway, that's a whole other story. But happy to talk about that if you're interested. But so our egg donor was open to being anonymous if we wanted, or to meeting Vivia. And back 10 years ago, I carried a lot of shame and fear about, I didn't even think I was going to share with anybody, including Vivia, that she was not my genetic baby. And then doing all the work that I do as a life coach, I've learned to break up my shame, and also to just live transparently. So even if there is shame, to speak my truth, to be vulnerable. And I want Vivia to know exactly who she is, and all of the, and now I'm in a completely different space. But anyway, long story short is, so I decided to share with her, and that's partly why I wrote the story, how she came to be, and these people. But I still didn't think I would meet her. The book. And I still didn't think I would meet the donor. And then during Vivia's first year of life, I'm thinking so much about what's best for her, and how can I, and one of the things they do say, if you have a donor baby or a surrogacy situation, is the research is, don't keep it a secret or wait till they're at a certain age to share it, that make it part of their birth story from their earliest. So Vivia and I, she's 2, she doesn't really know, but we read the book together, and we point out, and this is donor Tatiana, and this is cousin Katie who carried you in her tummy, and she's just starting to be able to be like, tummy in the book, and like we'll turn to that page and I'll be like, this is cousin Katie. And so, but in that first year, I just felt like my essence, that gut whisper said, what if she knew her egg donor? We don't have the option at this point to know her male donor, but that may shift and change, I don't know. But what if she knew her egg donor and her siblings? So she has 3 half siblings on that side. I only knew about 2 of them at the time. And they were like our family, but like a cousins, kind of, like we would maybe see them once a year, or if we like each other, maybe a little more. And she would know, this is donor Tatiana who gave her eggs. She's not your bio mom. She's not, and Katie's not your bio mom. You're my soul baby. This is donor Tatiana who gave us the eggs, and some of your genetic makeup and your traits come from her. And This is Katie, who, and so, but I was really scared, and I felt like that was best for her. But I was afraid, like, of the things like, well, what if when she's 7 and she says, "I hate you, mommy, I want to go live with my real mommy." And
Exactly.
my cousin Katie, who carried her, said, "Your child is definitely going to say, 'I hate you, mommy.'" And she may even say, that sentence, but it's not going to be about that, because every child is going to say that at some point. And she's like, it's like a knife in the back.
That's very true. That's very true. Yeah, even a biological child will say, "I hate your dad."
Yeah.
Or "I hate your mom."
Yeah,
just
I wish
because
you weren't
didn't give
my
them the
mommy,
lollipop.
or like,
Exactly. It's nothing personal.
Yeah.
It's just a
So
little
it wouldn't
emotional
be
reaction.
because she's not genetically related or anything like that. And then I was afraid, like, well, what if what if she's the spitting image of this woman, or like they share a bond that is so special, and I'm somehow on the outside. And that was all my survival mechanisms, my ego, my fear. And I know, as a coach, and just as someone who has allowed myself to go through the breakdown to have the breakthrough, that like I can't choose from fear. I want to choose from love, and choosing from love is inviting this family, if she's even still interested. Now it's 10 years later. Who knows? Maybe she doesn't want to be contacted.
Sure.
So we reached out to them through the egg donor agency, and they connected us in an initial phone call. We went and met them last year. And this is another one of those, like, it is so clear to me after that experience that this woman and her family, and she has two girls and a teenage boy, and her husband, who all welcomed us like family. It is so clear to me now, like, these people were supposed to be in my life as much as they were supposed to be in Vivia's. This woman and I, we have so much in common. It's like crazy, because I never would have known it from like the little bio information that I got. A lot of her natural traits are also my traits. So when they show up in Vivia, it's like, was it that nurture versus nature thing? Who knows?
Exactly.
Because we're so similar in so many ways. And like, I want to see her children grow up as much as she wants to watch Vivia grow up. Like, I left that trip, and it was a long weekend trip, thinking, I love, like, I just gained a new family, and I'm an only child. So it was like,
Exactly.
I hit the jackpot.
Yeah, I was going to make a comment about, the connection and everything, because I've watched you speak in front of a large audience, and I, in intimate one-on-one conversations with people, I observed, and I noticed that when you talk to people, whether if it's a large amount of people or just one person, you tend to speak energetically from the heart a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah.
And it will be very difficult for me to hear someone say that they don't connect with you, or they have a difficult relating to you.
I think there are some people that probably don't connect with me.
I mean, it's, of course, it's a human thing. Yeah. Everyone has their reality and perception of people, but I would imagine you're a rather easy person to connect with, because you tend to really speak from the heart a lot.
Thank you.
Like you have a sense of caring.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really, really nice compliment. I can't imagine living not connected to what lights me up, and sharing and receiving and giving love and kindness and fun and I will say, because you have seen me speak in front of a large audience, like at the dance studio,
exactly.
On stage,
exactly.
And I, growing up, the
do.
theater and dance and acting and performing, that was where I found myself. So being on stage, and I forget it, because I don't perform anymore, but being on stage, like, they hand me a microphone at dress rehearsal, and I'm like, I never want to get out. It's the worst. It's like the Leo in me, maybe. But I feel so comfortable, and I love the platform of being able to. One of the things that I love and that I always want to. So our philosophy at the dance studio is cutting edge training in a positive, self-esteem building, peer supportive, and fun environment. And growing up, I found it was always one or the other. And like you could get really great training, but it's kind of strict and belittling and not as fun, or it's so warm and fun, but you're not really learning anything. And so I had an amazing mentor in a children's theater that I grew up in. She actually recently passed away not the day before. Her memorial was the day before our dress rehearsal this year. And so I couldn't, it was back east and I wasn't able to go, and I just broke my heart. But she taught, her core belief system was life skills through theater. And so it's like performing arts is such an outlet for getting your emotions out or experiencing a broad range of emotions. Yeah. And so I was lucky enough to have that be the thing I loved as a child, and to have that be cultivated in such an inspiring community that I think it taught me. And I'm looking, and I'm like scanning through my life, and I'm realizing there were times in my life where I, specifically in my early 20s, when I went through some just tough stuff, I thought if I wasn't perfect, I was horrible. Like, it was like there was no in between. Mm-hmm. So that heart thing that you talk about, or mm-hmm. I think a big part of that is willing to be vulnerable and messy. Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I love, especially at a dress rehearsal when the parents are watching, and like, of course I want the parents to be happy with what they're seeing, but things go crazy at dress rehearsal. Yes. And I like to demonstrate, like, this can still be fun, and exactly. It's still going to be high level by the time we get there. But
that's the thing. That's the thing that really impressed me, because, you know, you have so much going on, and you're wearing so many hats, and so many people are in the backstage doing things, but yet you still are finding a way to keep it together and
light of.
Make it seem like, okay, you know what?
Well, you know what? If life's not fun, why are we doing it? And exactly, like, I remember when my mom, when I was little, and like, I always wanted to have sleepovers, and I'd be like, Mom, can I sleep over at Joanna's? Or can I? And my mom's answer was always, is it necessary? And my answer was, it was like this running joke that we would have, like, as I got older too, but like, she would say, is it necessary? Because then I'd be grumpy the next morning, I didn't get enough sleep, all the things that happen with sleepovers when you're little. And I'd say, no, but it's fun. And so that became like a running like joke in my family, like, is it necessary? No, but it's fun. Yeah. So for me, fun is necessary. And when I'm not having fun, or life becomes hard. Right.
If it's just
now, that's a clue for me. Right. That I've either outgrown the life I'm in, or something, I'm allowing something into my life that is not working, you know, like. And
it's just work only. If it's not fun,
it's
just work.
And of course, there's like, we have to pay that. I mean, let's have fun paying the bills. Like, there's doing our taxes. Like, I don't know. Some of these, like, some people may like.
Sure. You're doing this for survival purposes, but at the same time, you know, you want to be able to go to work and say, you know what, I'm able to actually, you know, have a livelihood, you know, because of this, and have fun, you know, at the end of the day. Because we're kids in certain ways. Yeah. We're grown-ups, but
if you
the inner child comes out.
If you detach from your inner child, like, that just sounds like so not fun. Yeah.
Now, I do really want to close out the Vivia segment, but I really would like we would like us to show the book that you wrote.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, if you could.
I have it right here. Oh, awesome. So here is.
What is the title?
It's called Vivia's Magical Birth Story. I'll look right into the camera.
Let's bring it a little closer.
By Julie Page, and you can get it on Amazon, and a couple of local bookstores out here. And this became a published book because, which was not my intent. I literally wrote the story just for Vivia, and I wanted to put it in a book with illustrations. I hired an illustrator, and what happened was I started sharing the story with some people, and I'll make this really quick. I shared it with my cousin who was adopted from Korea, one of my cousins. And I shared it with my friend who grew up in the foster care system since age 3. And both of them had such emotional reactions to the story about the idea of your soul family that you were meant to have, and not just your bio family, that it made, or just having a different story than you know, a mom and a dad, the nuclear family.
Sure.
And it made me realize that this story and other stories like it, so I do intend to write more stories. Like I want to write a story based on my cousin's experience, being
From her
like a children's story. Yeah, sort of from her perspective, but with the magic in there that
That's
like
neat. That's cool.
because I think it's important for all families to be honored. Families who have two daddies and two mommies and a mommy and a daddy, or or a grandma, or just a mom like me. And the more we can see that family means love in whatever way you put together your family, and it doesn't have to be blood, and it doesn't have to be nuclear family to have, and it doesn't have to be a big family or a small, to have enough love for it to be overflowing.
Yeah, the
and
roof
for
to
people
love.
to see themselves.
Exactly.
Like people who think they're different. So one of the things, the last thing I promise, she's now 8, but my 7-year-old neighbor, when Vivia was an infant, she came over and Vivia was like crying, and she said to me, "I think Vivia might be crying because she doesn't have a daddy."
Okay.
And I thought, ooh. And
That's
I thought,
an
well, no,
interesting-
she's hungry. But she has a mom and a dad and a very, traditional family.
Yeah.
And it made me realize people are going to say that to Vivia, like, "Oh, you don't have a dad? Do you wish you had a dad?" Like those are things that are going to happen in her childhood.
Yeah. Do you worry about that?
I do, of course I do. But I want to, one of the things I want to do, especially as she gets older, is have a community of families who are vastly different for her to see. Like, we're very lucky. Our next door neighbor is also a single mom with a donor baby.
Yes.
So her
She
next door
sees the
neighbor is going to
example.
be no daddy, has a male donor. Not that we didn't have a surrogate and all the other stuff. But I want her and like my neighbor to know, like, some families have a grandma, don't have a mom or a dad, but they still have all the love in the world that they need. Or some families have a caregiver, or in whatever way that may, or more than one.
Yeah, there's so many different ways of experiencing happiness.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to always take the same journey or road.
Yeah.
And as long as, I think as human beings, we just need core basic needs like security, sense of connection, sense of predictability, and all that. There's certain things that, if they're in place, those are the most important things.
Yeah.
Because imagine there are so many kids out there that actually have that nuclear family where the dad is abusive, or the mom is negligent, and so on and so forth, and they're miserable. They end up having a lot of adult issues, and so it doesn't mean that it's the only way to experience family. And I can imagine that you have so many people around you who give so much love and attention, positive emotion and everything.
Yeah, I used to say before she was born, I was going to create an army of love for her.
Okay.
So,
and I think you probably have, right?
Yeah, but I definitely still have those fears. Like, those things are going to come up.
Sure.
And there may be, I think we'll probably also end up meeting, she probably has a number of siblings on the male donor side, or half siblings on the male donor side. So if and when she wants to look, we'll go looking for them.
Sure.
And,
that's nice to be able to have that.
Yeah,
channel.
that I'm less afraid of, because I dealt with the unknown. And now, and I know we have to wrap up. So
It's okay.
there are definitely fears. I think every parent has fears that, I think about, like, what's her first heartbreak going to be like when a boy breaks her, or a girl, whatever she chooses, breaks her heart, or like all those things. Like, we never want to see our children suffer, and we never want to be blamed for it, or the cause of it, or doubt, or wonder if we are. Like, did I make the wrong choice by not having, by not being able to give her my genetic makeup, or a dad, or, whatever. And who knows, we may have a dad at some point, but we'll see.
You never know.
We'll see. I don't know. That's a whole other subject. But
Which we'll talk about dating after the next one.
Yeah.
Because I've met people who really struggle because they're single moms, and they don't know how to, start a new family, so to speak.
Yeah. And that's a whole other conversation. I am very confused about what I actually would want. So
Yeah.
like in coaching, we're future based. So we spend a lot of time looking at what would your most wholehearted life look like in these different areas: career, finance,
Exactly.
romance, blah blah blah.
Exactly. Kind of like a
And-
circle, the wheel of life. Sort of.
Yeah, exactly. You could use
Yeah.
the wheel of life as
Exactly.
a way to break it down.
Sure.
And that's an area of my life that I thought, before Vivia came into my life, I thought I knew that I did not want to be legally married, but I wanted to have a life partner in my home, and someone to help raise my child. This is maybe the control part of me, or the Leo, or I don't know what. But I had actually wanted to, not initially like when I was in my 20s and stuff, but as I got older and started thinking about becoming an older parent, I actually wanted to have my child first and then meet a life partner, so that I would never have to negotiate on how I want to raise my child. Because there are some tough negotiations that parents have to go through, even if their core values are aligned. Like, there's still just different what's best for the child, and there's never really a right answer. But I didn't want to have to negotiate that, and so who knows how that would be. Now that I have Vivia, I feel, and my doggy Sky is sleeping in the corner. I feel so fulfilled in the different areas of my life, and that is an area where I think that there's been some like trauma and some so there's fear. There's definitely like some fear and disempowering things, but there's also just like we're so taught. There's a bug. We're so taught that in order to be complete in your life, you have to have the career that lights you up, the romantic partnerships, the children if that's for you, or the passion projects, whatever. Like, and family unit, or like having a romantic partner, is it's like ingrained in us that you're not complete until you have that. You haven't checked off all the boxes yet, and so that you can't possibly be fulfilled without that box. Like, there's something missing, and the more I delve outside of cultural norms and into what is the fullest expression of myself and my way to receive and give love, like, the more I'm unsure if I need that. But then then my brain goes, are you just saying that? Is that my fear masking itself
like a trauma response
as something else? Am I just so? I have not dated since Vivia was born. I dated a little bit. That's not true. I did a little something.
Because there's not a lot of free time. Also,
there's no free time, man.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you're always
or
tired.
Yeah, and I'm exhausted. I go to bed. Yeah, like
Yes.
if she wants to go to bed at 8:30, I'm like, yes. No, exactly. But no, I'm opening up to. We had talked, before we started the interview about. I'm really interested in the movement that's happening with men being invited in some areas to have access to their divine feminine energy. And I have run for so long on like masculine energy in regards to like how I manage my life and get stuff done and be successful and and I want to lean back now and attract some of that flow and divine feminine, and that maybe opens the door for me to find a partner who, I think at this point, what I would want in a partner is somebody that shares, obviously, core values, but like similar core values, but is number one, doing their self-work and knows what that means, like has a level of awareness and desire to evolve and grow and have uncomfortable conversations and in honor of understanding and love and connection and joy and all of that. But like someone who's like shares a similar like life purpose or mission. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a career, but that's a driving force. And obviously, like, there has to be the physical attraction and all of that. So and then, you know, my fear voice goes, or like my impossible voice goes, where are you going to find the guy that you're physically attracted to? And I'm a little picky in that area. Again, that may be a defense system, I'm not sure. And that also shares your core values and your mission and is silly and fun and all the things I have on the list.
Yeah, it's almost like too many check boxes.
Yeah, right? And so, but then the other side of me is like, I don't want to just be in a like, it's okay.
Just
like
I
have a lot of friends who are in marriages where it's like, it's okay. Sometimes I can't stand them. Sometimes I love them again.
Yeah.
And I understand that is probably what a if you want a long-term relationship is going to go through that. And so I don't know. Dating and romance is the one area of my life that I feel like I have. I recently said to somebody that I've been a failure in, but I don't think I've failed my partners. I think I've mostly failed myself. And I think if I were to like dig deeper, this is a coachy thing, but like if I were to dig deeper, we all have a flavor of not enough. So for some people, their flavor is like, I'm not smart enough, or I'm not worthy enough, or I'm not pretty enough, or
kind of like a self-talk that's negative.
Yeah, and most of us have one that's like stronger of their flavor of not enough. And mine is not lovable enough. And so I'm sure that somehow plays into, or has played into, how I've operated in relationships. And I've had healthy, good relationships and not healthy relationships in my life. But I'm not standing with what we call the like so-called prize, which then again, when I'm looking at friends in marriages or having divorced and remarried, or like, it's life for me is not, it can't just be about reaching the goal or the outcome. It has to be, there has to be excitement, fulfillment along the journey. And so I don't know. I think it's definitely an area of my life that when maybe another year or so, when Vivia's a little bit older, I will revisit, probably with a coach initially, and I'll probably revisit exploring what do I actually want there, because in all other areas of my life, I'm usually very clear on what I want, and then I can play for it.
Right.
And this is one area where I'm like, I don't know what I want. And when I look in different directions, I don't know if that's coming from my essence, like, or my survival mechanisms. And it's very like foggy in that area for me. But I know that it's an area that, because it's confusing to me, that my gut says it's probably more fear than anything else. So I'm sure that I will be getting uncomfortable in that area again, and hopefully have some breakdowns to breakthroughs in whatever way
of course
is right for me.
Yeah, of course. I think it's a natural human reaction.
Hi.
Okay, so we are actually switching to a different camera just to do this conclusion video. Yeah, but I do really want to thank you, Julie, so much for sitting down with me, talking to me, and sharing your story. And I really do believe that it's going to help people out there who are going to relate to you and your story about Vivia. And but before we finish, would you be able to tell us where people could find you?
Sure. Before I say that, I just want to really thank you for creating the platform to have these types of conversations, and I had so much fun talking about all this stuff. And let's see, where can you find me? My website is www.mostinspiredlife.com. So mostinspiredlife.com. My Insta is mostinspiredlife.juliepage, I think. I'm pretty sure.
And I'll put the description.
Okay, yeah. Let's see. I have a Facebook. Okay. My studio, if you're interested in dance in Los Angeles, would be inspired-dancestudio.com. Gotta remember the dash because there's another one in Simi Valley. And then I have a bunch of other ways to reach me. But those, I would say for coaching, if you're interested in coaching, it would be my website will give you lots of information and ways to contact me, and then my Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
this is so
you.
fun, and I look forward to seeing what else, who else you bring into the space.
Sure.
And what other conversations about living, a lit up.
Sounds good. And I don't think I have a doubt that we're going to probably talk again on camera
sure.
on the different topics.
For sure.
Yeah. Again, thank you.
Yeah.
Have
All
a good
right.
day.
See you soon.
Okay. Bye.